Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Conversations in Horror. We are going to celebrate this Halloween month, October, with a lot of great horror films. And of course, we're going to try and delve even deeper into the amazing Halloween franchise itself. We've done one episode already on the original John Carpenter's Halloween, but we hope to get through a bunch more of the films as the month goes by. And to get us started, we're going to skip Halloween 2 for right now, and we're going to go to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is today's episode of the podcast. So, joining me today for this conversation on Halloween 3 is Dave Watkins. He's returning with us as he always does because he's here with us regularly as our guest host. But he probably knows a whole hell of a lot about Halloween because, like me, he has grown up watching all of these films in this franchise and probably inundated it about as much as I have. So it's going to be fun to talk with him about the movie today. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is the more diverse film in the entire franchise, since it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. So thank you, Dave, for joining us.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Here's how it goes. Little jingle for Halloween 3.
Yeah, and since this is probably the first episode of the month, this is going to be a great start for the month. We have a lot of great episodes, so I'm really excited about us delving more into more of the Halloween films because I know a lot of people are really excited about that, and they absolutely love the films, whether they watch the original films that John Carpenter did or like the first version of Legacy sequels, which is Halloween H20 and those, or the Rob Zombie films, or the new Legacy sequels.
Yeah.
But we will
I
get into
think
all of
that,
those.
yeah. I think diversive may not be the right word. Maybe something like polarizing is something to that nature because diversive, I guess maybe we maybe talk about Halloween Resurrection with that one. Is
Yeah, I guess you could be. I guess you are absolutely right. Over the years, since Halloween 3 was released, I hear a lot of people who used to hate that movie, but now it's a huge cult movie and it has a huge cult following, which is why we're doing the episode now instead of doing Halloween 2 first, because I think this is a much more interesting conversation to have, which is the movie that John Carpenter was trying to create the Halloween franchise based on different stories that take place on Halloween. As we all know, that didn't work out financially, but I thought it was a great concept.
Yeah, I really like the idea too. I'm kind of glad they were able to get back to Michael Myers, but I do like it's
Mhm.
unfortunate. The idea was very solid, to do different types of Halloween stories in the movies. It's unfortunate that it went down the way that it did. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like a two-way thing where if it hadn't been called Halloween 3, it may not have been seen by as many people. But at the same time, if they called it something else, then maybe they would have been able to make more movies that were connected to it. But people wanted Michael Myers back, and
Mhm.
they weren't going to stand for him not being the main antagonist in the film.
Yeah,
Did
like
did
you
you see
bring up.
it? Did you see it in the theater? When you
I
or
did not. I did not see any of them in the theater until the fifth one. I
Yeah.
remember the fourth one came out because I bought the novelization and read the novelization before actually seeing the movie. But the first three I saw on VHS as a rental because my mother was very big into horror films and Halloween was some of her favorite movies. So I'd seen them a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
the first one I saw was the sixth one in the theater. Yeah. Yeah.
right. Well, that's okay because there's a lot of people who didn't like the fifth one either. But
Well, actually, I don't. I think the fifth one is to me probably one of the worst ones, but I do like the sixth one. But it's maybe because it was the one I saw in the theater first, you know.
yeah, we're gonna get back to Halloween 3, but you bring
Yeah,
up
yeah,
something interesting because Halloween 5, because it was the first one I saw at the theater, I loved that more than a lot of the other ones until I got older and realized how bad the movie actually was.
right. And the same thing with me, but like I remember I watched it on cable, and it was like I liked the way it had the continuity from the fourth one into the
Mhm.
fifth one, but then. I thought it was fine the first time I saw it, but then watched it recently, maybe a year or two ago. I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I was like, wow, I didn't remember this one being as bad as it is,
Mhm.
as far as not making any sense, and it kind of derailed the series a little bit.
It
But
it
anyway,
did.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
But
but
I
give me
get
about
yeah.
the season of the witch because we can delve in. The thing about the Halloween franchise is there are so many sequels and so many ways of taking conversations. So we're gonna go back to Halloween 3, which is Season of the Witch, which starred one of my favorite actors or cult actors, which is Tom Atkins, which is probably actually this may be the movie that made me a fan of his prior
So
to.
Night of the Creeps or this.
The thing is, I didn't watch Night of the Creeps when it first came out, so I can't remember.
He's
I
also in The Fog. So
Yeah, the Fog was another one I didn't watch when it originally
yeah.
came out. The thing
Maniac Cop.
I did watch that when it
Yeah,
first came out,
yeah.
though.
But this one is with him, and since he is the main character. Maniac Cop, he is kind of the main character, but
Mhm.
then he gets killed halfway through unexpectedly, which was a cool move. But here he is the main character for sure,
Mhm.
and he gets the women too, so that helps.
So just and then we're probably not gonna go too much in the plot because I'm pretty sure everyone has seen Halloween 3 who is listening to this podcast. But the thing about when I rewatched it recently, when I was watching it with Tom Atkins, it suddenly dawned on me that Tom Atkins never comes off as a doctor in this movie. He seems to be too tough of a guy to be a doctor, and so when I was rewatching it, it seemed odd to me.
I don't know. I bought it. I've never thought that he wasn't a doctor myself. I don't know. I,
I'm so used to.
yeah. I guess if you're around more doctors, maybe you'd see the way that they maybe act. But he's a special kind of doctor in this one. You know,
He's a
he's
doctor who comes in, says a couple words, goes to try and sleep on a couch before then getting called out when the first person when the first robot burns himself alive, and he goes on this little adventure with the daughter of the victim. And it just dawned on me when I was watching it, he never really seems like a real doctor. Uh,
Yeah, and it's really no reason for him to be a doctor other than to get the plot going from the beginning
yeah.
because he never does anything with his doctor skills in the film. I guess maybe throw out the plot real quick just so people who maybe haven't seen it,
All right.
and maybe they haven't seen it in a long time and they're like, what happens in that one? But it is a science fiction and a horror film that it deviates from the slasher formula, but it also does pay homage to it because there are these androids in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the main thing is what happens with the driving force of the plot. There's these masks. There's three masks: a witch, a jack-o'-lantern, and what the hell the skeleton mask that people are getting that have the silver shamrock logos on them. So they get them, and there's a mystery behind this. They don't know what's going on with it, but the first guy who is a mask shop owner shows up at Tom Atkins' place, all like he's all messed up, and then he gets killed by an android. And then who you don't know is an android yet, but they walk like Michael Myers. And the first time I saw it, I was thinking maybe it was like a different type of Michael Myers.
Same here. I thought the same way. I do remember that.
Yeah, maybe Michael Myers might be an android, one of the androids. You know, it could be that. But then anyway, so then they go with that. You know, basically that the first android kills himself, but then Tom Atkins' doctor's character could be off the hook at that point. But then the guy's daughter shows up, and he kind of becomes interested in her and her journey to go find out what happened to her dad. And then they go to this town called Santa Maria something Maria that has been taken over by the Silver Shamrock Company. It's like which is an interesting plot thing. There's a lot of different types of themes going on with this film where this town, this company has moved into this town, brought their own people in who are mostly androids, and they've taken over the town, and they didn't hire really any locals because the town drunk says they didn't hire the locals. They pretty much only hired their people, and now everybody's kind of out of work because of this thing. It's not necessarily helping the town. So they've taken over the town, and to make these masks that end up you want to go ahead and say what happens with the mask, or we should probably hold off on that until later.
Well, it depends.
It depends.
The masks, which are enjoyed and loved by the children everywhere, and you'll see that later in the film when they show cutaways. They do this really nice montage of kids in all different states wearing these masks as they're trick or treating towards the climax of the film. So these are very popular masks, and obviously the mystery that leads Tom Atkins' character and Ellie, I think it's Ellie,
Yeah,
to
I think so.
town, they realize that there's something strange going on with this factory after Ellie sees that her father's car is being hidden within the factory. So
Yeah,
that's the thing that keeps them there.
yeah. But I did leave out the fact that there's the TV stuff. There's a lot of stuff on TV. That's like, so this was made in 1982,
Mm-hmm.
and so television was the way that you're going to understand see things. Maybe that or newspapers, but people didn't have cell phones. That's how they got their information. And throughout the first part of the film, you see the Silver Shamrock commercial on, and they're saying like, "Kids, get your mask ready for Halloween night. Something special is going to happen right at a certain time."
The
But
great
also,
countdown in the film. It's a
right,
countdown.
yeah, to till Halloween. And there's also on the TV and some other expositions given away because Stonehenge has been stolen, which may have something to do with what's going on with the mask.
You know what? It took me a long time before I realized that that little hint was in there.
Yeah,
It's only been a few years since I've last seen it, other than a few days ago. And I didn't pick up on that because I had seen it so many times that I kind of overlooked a lot of details, or I just didn't recognize them because I was a kid. I realized that like a couple years back that was in there, and I was like, oh shit, storytelling, foreshadowing. I didn't
yeah,
think about it when I was a kid, though.
yeah. But also this, just so they can tie it into the other Halloween movie, they have a trailer on for like the John Carpenter's Halloween, and it shows Michael Myers and Laurie Strode on the TV. So Michael Myers is technically in the film briefly.
Yeah, but I kind of like your explanation because the robots or the androids being more, they walk like Michael Myers. I always saw that as a kid, only because I always like to attribute the third film to the Michael Myers franchise, and so I used to just think that these were Michael Myers without the mask. When
Right.
you're a kid, you don't think about these things. You just think this is Michael Myers without a mask.
Right. But I think though the way that the film is, it's almost like an alternate reality or an alternate universe that, and maybe all the Halloween different timelines are. This is a timeline where Halloween exists as a movie, like closer to our real world.
Oh,
But maybe the movie was in that particular reality. Maybe the movie was drawn from these androids.
you trying to get meta on me.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess the next iteration of Halloween, whoever takes it over, will be meta with Michael Myers.
Yeah, I don't. They gotta be real careful with this when they do it again. They tend to do pretty good with one, and then they kind of blow it after that. But it's I don't know. It's hard though. It's hard with slashers anyway because what people want to see, I don't know if they really want to see it, but maybe they want to see the same thing again, but do they really want that? And then the filmmakers or the screenwriters want to try to be creative and do something different, but it's really hard to do that and at the same time have people appreciate what you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Like here, for instance, and also, if you get into Halloween 6 and the Curse of the Thorn, which some
Yep.
people really like, and some people are like, what just happened?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard just to keep having the same shit happen every time. You kind
Yeah.
of got to do something
Well,
different.
I think that was part of Halloween, and you bring up a good point. I think that was part of the reason why Halloween 3 deviated from the original Michael Myers. And I think that's why Halloween 6 tried to, and I like, I think it was Dave Chappelle. Is that who directed the sixth one? I've now forgotten.
Dave Chappelle directed?
Not the not I forget how to say his name. You have to look that one up on me. I always forget because he did a bunch of films. Like I think he did that one and Phantoms and a couple other movies that I was familiar with at the time.
It's Joe Chappelle.
Joe, see, I was close.
Yeah. It was real close. Yeah, I mean, they got the last name.
But he was trying to tie up a lot of loose ends and try and make sense out of all the stuff that came before. And I honestly, when I saw part 6, just like I saw part 3, thought that, oh, this is going to be interesting. He's trying to be more creative and do something different with the story. Now, there's a lot of people who just didn't like part 6, and there's a lot of people who didn't like part 3 when it came out. But I think both of these two films in particular have have a really diverse and different type of cult following that isn't there for part 5. There is no cult following really for part 5. I don't hear people say, "Oh, that's a great movie." Nah, part 6. So there's a lot of people out there who really like part 6 because of the different type of story aspects they put in it. The stuff of Thorn, trying to make it all make it sense. And part 3 does that too. It tried to bring in witchcraft, Stonehenge, androids. You would think none of this shit would actually work. Come on, Stonehenge, androids, a toy company with masks that kill kids, and even that right there.
Yeah,
that ideal of a mask killing kids, like this is the ideal behind Halloween 3.
Yeah, it's got a lot of crazy stuff in it, and the way that it's presented, at least for the first half, it is it's presented as a kind of a mystery, and they're trying to solve a mystery, unlike the slashers are typically just reacting to getting chased, but it almost in some ways plays a little bit like a giallo film or an Italian giallo film in a way, without the some of the exploitation stuff, but it does play more like that, like they're trying to solve a mystery and eventually come across it. So it's a little, if people aren't used to that pace, it's a little slow moving. Even it's a 1982 film, so some of the editing probably, if they did it now, they would make it a little quicker. I don't mind it. I've seen it a lot of times, and I think if it was the first time I saw it, I did think it was a little slow, and I wanted things to happen quicker. But the older I get, the less I mind the slow pacedness of it, because you don't want the crazy shit just to happen without something first. Before it gets really crazy too, there's like some pretty funny stuff going on with Tom Atkins and this girl who's about 20 years younger than him. It's the guy's daughter who just has died, and then she's like starts hitting on him, and there's like a scene where they go into the hotel room, which I think is probably the most famous scene in the film. And he's like, "If you want me to, I can go sleep out in the car or on the floor or whatever." She's like, "Where do you want to sleep, doctor?" Whatever his name is. And he's like, "Isn't that a silly question?" He's like, "Isn't that a silly question?" And he goes and starts making out with her.
Despite the fact that he has an ex-wife that he's talked to several times on the phone.
Yeah, which I guess she's his ex-wife, and she can't stand him.
Yeah,
he seems to have a very flawed character, which makes him interesting. He seems to be a bit of a womanizer. Maybe the women are kind of attracted to him, and he can't help but follow through with it. But he doesn't seem to be actively seeking it out. It seems like he's like a magnet for the chicks. But his ex-wife got some glares from her. She's done with his shit,
I never thought about that till you mentioned that. Wow. But I guess that was the Tom Atkins thing, because he does the same thing pretty much in The Fog too.
Yeah, he hooks up with Jimmy and Curtis like immediately. It's like the first time they meet, and I don't know. It's like, it's funny in the movie where I don't know. I mean, maybe Tom Atkins really does get that going, but I like it. My wife's seen it a few times. I made her watch it, and she's like, "I just don't understand why people think he's attractive." And it's so gross when he has sex with that girl that's like 20 years or 30 years younger than him.
Yeah, I only noticed that this last watch of the movie. I was like, oh my God, I just realized how fucking older he is to her.
Yeah.
You don't think about that.
Yeah. It's funny that I definitely didn't think about it when I was younger, but it's just like,
Yeah. So I do want to bring up something else. As I was watching this, I actually found this a little bit more violent than the other two. I forgot that at the very beginning, when the first android shows up, he literally puts his fingers into the old man's eyes and snaps his nose. I was like, wow.
It's pretty gross. That's something when I was younger, I was like, hell yeah, it's about time they did that. It's been 5 minutes, but now it's like, oh man, that was pretty gruesome. It's still a pretty cool effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Well, John Carpenter still had a hand in making this movie, so of course,
producing.
And I'm thinking that might be one of the reasons why it is paced the way it is. I think one of the things that we should talk about is the fact that this is probably the only one that uses any type of elements of sci-fi in it. And it's an interesting question of why Carpenter allowed the story to delve into something like this, or if it was just something natural to go with the witchcraft, Stonehenge, and everything else that was going along with the story. I mean, do you think that that helps at all? The androids. I mean, think about it. There is no. I can't think of any other horror slasher that delves this much into the sci-fi territory while also trying to do a
Yeah.
slasher movie. Although you did bring up a good point that it does remind me of a giallo, because the androids are wearing black gloves when they kill people.
Yeah, but then, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it does necessarily hurts it. I think all the plot points and there's an explanation for it, even though it's a little silly. But all the plot points do lead to the what eventually happens.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I think that without the androids in there, then maybe this pacing would have been even more slow. And they kind of needed like a force. They needed like something that was more like Michael Myers that was able to kill people. I think in order for it to move forward, because really the main plot line is the mask, and what their goal is. The kids put these masks on Halloween, and once this broadcast happens, it pretty much kills them. It turns their heads to mush, and then snakes and bugs and all this other shit comes out of their heads, and then kills the adults.
Mhm.
But in order to implement that, they did need some muscle, and so that's why they have the masked people.
Now, now the one thing that I didn't pick up on to this last one, and in this last viewing, and this could be because I have never, I don't think until this last viewing I really looked at this movie critically at all, and that's because I saw it so many times as a kid. But the last time I just saw the movie, it dawned on me that when Ellie is a robot, and they're keeping that knowledge from Tom Atkins' character, she says no more words. She stopped talking.
Right? Yeah,
It
yeah,
becomes
yeah.
more like the robots. I don't know if you noticed that or not because you saw it when you were probably older than me,
Well,
but I saw it in
well,
the
yeah.
80s and it didn't dawn on me when she became a robot, because I was a little kid at the time. But now it's all in the story if you look for it.
Right, and it's like sometimes you hear the question of even like the director, which we should talk about the director in a minute, but even the director in the director's commentary, the first time she shows up, he mentions like, "Don't ask me if she's a robot at this point because I don't know." But to me, I know. And you're right, because once she becomes a robot, like the other robots, they don't talk,
They don't
and she
talk.
doesn't talk. But she doesn't necessarily act like a robot the whole time she is a robot. She's more of an advanced version of it, maybe. But and so I guess the biggest question too is like what happens to her? What happened to her real body? I assume she's dead, but it never reveals it. I mean, they blow the factory up. If she was in the factory, I mean, she was probably dead before that. But but yeah, I mean, and I mean that's definitely a mystery that as the first time I saw it, I was probably like a teenager or I was pretty young, but I saw it on TV or something. But the first time I saw it, I couldn't really grasp exactly when she became a robot. When I watched it when I was a little bit older, it was pretty obvious at which point it happens. She gets captured, and then he goes to find her, and after she's captured, the next time you see her on, she's a robot.
Yeah. And I only noticed for the first time that when he finds her, she's in this sterile room, just belted down to a table.
Yeah,
And not like in a captive room where you would keep someone alive. These are the things I just noticed the last time because
yeah.
I've never watched it critically until now. So some things I just didn't pick up on because you don't when you're a kid.
Yeah. Well, this is a type of movie too that doesn't bear critical analysis very good, but we're gonna go do it anyway because there are definitely some plot holes. It's like,
Oh
but
yeah. I mean, how
but
the hell did they make Ellie into a robot? Like literally, what, 12 hours after
yeah,
she
yeah,
disappeared?
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't think about those things when you originally watch it, but
But there's some really weird stuff that with her character earlier on. I think that's why some questions are maybe asked about it because she almost fits the description of like the stereotype pixie girl, like the cute pixie girl who's the perfect girl that shows up in your life, and and it makes it more interesting.
Mm.
and she does do that, and it's like, and she doesn't ever seem to be remorseful about her father's death, and but there's no, like, and if you think about it, I don't really don't think, I think it was just, I think she's human the whole time, and she is that way, but there is some odd stuff going on with her character that kind of could, sums up. So,
I won't say too much about that. I will I think that the last time I watched it was the first time I realized that she kind of disappears halfway through the film, gets captured, then we're just following Tom Atkins as he wanders through learning little tidbits about the town before he is then captured, and then everything's explained to him, and then he escapes again, and she's out of the story for a good chunk
yeah,
till the end. For some reason, when I was younger, I kept thinking she was in the entire movie, and then I realized no, she really isn't. She
you're
gets
right.
captured
It's
pretty
pretty.
early.
Yeah, it's a little bit past halfway, but I do like her performance when she is on screen. I think she's
Yeah,
very likable. I had never seen her in anything else, but
I
I thought
don't
she was,
recall either.
yeah, she kind of, but I did like her. Her name's Stacy Nelkin,
Mm.
um, and I'm looking on her, but she's been in other stuff, but I don't recognize her from. She's in Yellowbeard, which I did see that, but I probably wouldn't have put it together. Bullets Over Broadway, she was in that, but
Oh yeah, that was a good movie. I haven't seen
yeah,
it in years either. Huh.
I don't know if she's a main character in it though. I'm just looking on
Yeah, I
internet.
couldn't tell you.
She's,
This will forever be the only movie I can recognize her face from. I may have seen some of the other movies, but this will be it. So she does not have a presence like Tom Atkins does, or a
yeah, yeah.
history. You know,
But maybe, yeah, maybe she might have had she done more stuff. There was something else about her. I can't remember it now, but there's something else that made her kind of famous other than this. By the way, I talk about the director real quick. His name's Tommy Lee Wallace,
hmm
and he's an editor and a production designer. He worked on the first Halloween film and The Fog, so he knew John Carpenter, and that's why he was eventually selected to do this, even though he hadn't really directed a lot. But a lot of times when someone who's a production designer goes into being a director, it is a good thing because they're thinking more about the production design, which makes it look more cinematic,
hmm
and an editor. So, someone with those two skill sets, you're gonna get what's in front of the camera is he's already thinking about what he's shooting and he's thinking about how it looks. So,
Well, and it helps this film. Think about it. When you're watching this film, it's shot like a slasher film, but it never really feels that way because of the type of story it is. And then, of course, when it's revealed that it's the Stonehenge thing, the color palette changes a whole lot because the first half of the movie feels like a slasher film. Once they get into the labs and the actual Toy Story, you start seeing the colors get more blue and they start getting colder. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and you see a lot more of that, especially when they're actually in the room with the Stonehenge slab, and you see all the doctors and doctors, the scientists. They're not really doctors. Just like Tom Atkins, it really isn't a doctor. But you see the color palette change, and I only noticed it this last time. I watched it because I think this is one of those films that kind of switches genres, switches expectations. You're watching it thinking it's going to be a slasher Michael Myers film, and you get that for a good chunk of the first half, even though there's a mystery. But by the time some of that mystery starts to get revealed, it starts to change, and you get more of the sci-fi story elements out of it. I still think that the laser beam that comes out of the Shamrock little chip that kills the one woman in the hotel room, stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
The laser
Yeah.
beam.
That's pretty, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty gruesome when she gets killed like that too, because she's messing with the Silver Shamrock logo is falling off the mask, and she's just fucking around with it, and it shoots her in the face, kills her. But she's like still alive briefly, like after her whole face is all jacked up and she's dying. But that's crazy looking.
Well, this one's a little bit more gruesome than the other ones.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I
yeah.
said. I didn't notice the gruesomeness until I rewatched it, and I didn't notice it either because I'd seen it so many times. But I was watching it with someone who hadn't seen the movie before. My sister had never seen it, so she was
Right.
watching it with me. My older sister, so she grew up probably. She didn't. She's not inundated with Halloween as much as I am, but she's seen a lot of the early ones. So she'd seen it. She completely forgot about it, and when she saw that scene, she was like, "Oh my god!" Like it's like she never remembered the movie was
Yeah.
ever that gruesome, and all this stuff came out like she was watching it for the very first time. And I like, oh, this is interesting because I've never watched this film with someone who's never seen it before. So
Yeah. What did she think it was slow, like paced, or was she like on board with the pacing?
she was on board with the pacing. And my sister likes a lot of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
She's a big slasher fan.
Yeah,
She
yeah. I really think in a lot of ways that things need to slow down a little bit in general sometimes.
mhm.
You know, some things it helps like I think the mindset in some of these films is just like go, 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 but sometimes it needs a little room to breathe to either create a mystery or create characters or whatever it needs to do, you know?
I like fast pace if it's a ticking time clock type atmosphere. I do
Right.
not like the fast pace for it just simply to be fast.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the ticking time, even though there's a ticking time bomb here, but you don't know it, until it blows up in your face. Suddenly, like literally,
It's in the background. The whole Silver Shamrock jingle on TV. It's a
right.
slow ticking time bomb in the background, and you don't realize it until the very last scene, and literally that's when that time clock is to the very end. And I love the ending of this film. It's one of my favorite endings to a horror slasher film because it's so ambiguous and you're on the edge of your seat the entire time trying to figure out what's going to happen. And then, of course, it goes to black and you're left thinking, what the hell just happened? What's going to happen? And that's just how it is.
Yeah, they did a really nice job with the ending, and I think the ending it might be frustrating to some people because it doesn't explain exactly what happens, but I think that leaving something open it helps people really keep it in their mind better, and they can it helps it just helps people remember what happened better and really think about the movie.
Mhm.
Um, and originally they had like a little bit different ending. They
Really?
had that it was basically the same, but instead of cutting to black, it just heard like the screams and of agony of like millions of kids all at one time was the idea but that way, but they left it open because he may have
Oh,
still been able to save them. Like it was really, I don't think he could have saved them, but because it was so that it was in the blinking pumpkin part,
yeah.
but I mean, but I like the idea that maybe he could have, and I do like it that they don't say whether he did or not.
hmm I agree. But I do have a funny off story on this. For the when I saw this when I was younger, I always thought that they were always going to make a sequel to that movie just so I can know what the hell they how they. When you're a kid,
Yeah,
that's what you think. So I'm
right.
waiting. I'm waiting for this damn sequel to Halloween 3 to happen because at that point I was already into it. And for me, I didn't care if it had Michael Myers in there or not. And then of course Halloween 4 doesn't tell me how the fucking movie ends, and for a long time I was a little pissed off at that. Uh, but like I tell you, I read the book for Halloween 4 before I saw the movie, the novelization, and so I knew what was going to happen. So I knew by then I was like, well, they don't tell me how it ends in Halloween 3, but at least I get more Michael Myers. So
Right, right. I think that what's interesting about the film and the time that it takes place is the computer technology,
mhm.
which is very outdated now. But I remember like even the first time I saw it, it was like probably a few years outdated. The way it opens with this drawn picture of a pumpkin, like from that old school computers, which
Mhm.
I had when those same type of images I had in my school, but they really like kind of it's just funny the way that the computers can do a lot more than they really can in the film. It's like sometimes I'm like what are they doing? They're sitting around messing with the computers, but what exactly is it? You know?
So you bring up something very interesting that I wanted to make mention of because in the 80s, I don't know if this how prevalent or how much fear audiences had of a town in which there are cameras watching your every move and Big Brother knows what you're doing when you don't. The
This was after the what do you call it, the Cold War. So I mean, a lot of people, especially the writers on this, were very familiar with
yeah,
that scenario. You know?
Yeah, but the idea of having an entire town in the US where cameras are everywhere watching you, people are afraid to say things. And when a woman gets killed in the hotel room, the first response is they already know what's going on. They're coming in and covering it up without.
Yeah, and they get there. I mean, they had to have a camera in the hotel room or something for them to know that she was dead, you know?
Yeah. So I think and there's been talks of people wanting like a remake of this Halloween as opposed to any more Halloweens, just to do it, just not call it Halloween. It'd be interesting to see how they would come up with a newer story with the fact that we have cameras everywhere. And the whole idea of people watching you in social media would probably throw this story into a whole little frenzy or loop somewhere. It'd be interesting for someone to come up with something like
Well,
this.
I think it would work. I mean, it would work in like now if you're watching this film, you don't like people like younger people today probably don't understand the TV thing because they don't watch like TV like we did when we were younger. I mean, so it would make more sense for it to happen through the phones or the internet. And then
So,
like 20 years from now, people will be like, what the hell is that damn internet? You know, it's like that don't make any sense. How are people looking at their phones all the time?
oh my God, that would be an interesting concept. Dave, you need to work on that right now.
Yeah, but
Oh my,
another like kind of theme to this, which is funny, is the Irish people. So the main villains are Irish. They've taken over the town. They call it Silver Shamrock, which doesn't scream Halloween, which makes it funny because it seems St. Patrick's Day, but it's pretty cool though. So it's kind of anti-Irish because these Irish people are from like the old school Halloween. Like I don't know how old, Dan O'Herlihy, who played the old man in RoboCop, and he also played Andrew Packard in Twin Peaks. If you've ever seen that, but he plays a very similar character to the old man in RoboCop, but he's more sinister here, and he's pagan. But he's dresses like a suit, just like the old man in RoboCop, but he doesn't look like a warlock. But he's from that old Irish, like where he says, well, Halloween back in the day they used to sacrifice children in order to have a good year or whatever. And he says that things have gone to shit, so we got to kill all these kids to make it better. We got to have a human sacrifice, and that's the whole premise behind the film. And
which would be kind of hard. I would love to see someone bring that up. I don't see how someone thought this was going to be a great idea in the 80s. Let's sacrifice all the children in the horror movie for the holidays and have that. It just seemed kind of odd. Uh,
yeah, in a way, I think it's done so. I think like with witches in general, though, if you think too much about it, it's pretty hard to take because they often sacrifice kids and stuff to get what they need. Like often, like in Hocus Pocus, they kind of it happens actually. I don't. I mean, but that's just what witches do, and But I don't know. I mean, it happens in Hocus Pocus, and it's considered a kids movie. But in the first act of it, they kill a kid. So I don't. They just. But
that
it's
was
like.
that was when it was safe to kill children in PG-13 movies, and no one cares too much about it.
Yeah, I think the way that this movie is, the pacing is so like slow moving that maybe some people didn't even think that much about it. They're like, let's make something happen, and then the kid's head, gets caved in, and then Bugs kind of like it's about time something happened.
Well, and the thing is, it's pretty gruesome, gruesome aspect, with the death of the one kid, the young kid who's actually annoying when you
Yeah,
first meet him in the movie. So I don't
yeah,
think too many people were feeling too sorry for the kid. They purposely made the kid annoying.
right.
I guarantee, if it was a nice kid, I think it would have
Yeah,
been a different reaction. But he was annoying when he's first
yeah.
introduced.
Yeah, and he like flicks them off. He flicks Tom Atkins off and all that. Yeah, that's how they got away with killing people. Typically, they make them annoying, and so it's all right. I remember when they had this on TV, and they would show that in the promo for it, like that the scene with the kid like with the jack-o'-lantern head like falling to the ground and dying. That would be
Mhm.
one of the clips that was shown. I don't know. But yeah, it never really like triggered me when I was watching it as a kid. I think as a kid too, it's like it bothers you less to see kids get killed. It's more when you become older
When you
that
have
it's
kids.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
because when you're a kid, it's like the kids are the same age as you, and like Tom Atkins is 80 years old in it. He's, he's probably like 40, but the girl who's like probably 20 is like looks like she's 30 or 40 when I was a kid, but
Oh my God. Tom Atkins is timeless.
yeah. But actually, it's funny because I'm used to him having gray hair. For some reason, I thought he had gray hair in the movie, but he doesn't. It's not gray.
Yeah, I don't know. I see him as gray hair. I recently watched Maniac Cop and realized I really liked his character in here, and he died halfway through too. I was like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, he does die here.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It was interesting way of doing that for sure.
yeah, it was, and he was a really good cop. And he dies halfway through the movie, so it was, he wasn't like an
Yeah.
annoying bad cop or anything like that. He was actually a good cop in that movie.
Right.
But
Yeah.
with Halloween 3, I'm trying to figure out anything else that we should talk about in regards to that, because we talked about the technology in there. We talked about how different it was from the other Halloween movies. Thing is, I wanted to delve as much into this movie as we possibly can because it's so different from the other Halloween films. And for anyone out there who has not seen this because they have skipped it because it didn't have Michael Myers, we want to give a reason for people to actually go out there and watch the movie.
Yeah. I mean, like ever since the first time I saw it, I did like the film. I don't know how I saw it in relation to the other Halloween movies. I might have even been one of the first ones I saw. It seemed like I did see another one of them first, maybe the first one. But it's so weird when it first came out. According to the information, it still made a profit, but it didn't make as much of a profit as the other one, and they got really horrible reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, like if it got a bad review, that was almost worse than it not making any money. They're like, we're not making another one of these, not one of those reviews.
And that's why there was such a long, long break between the third and fourth one.
Yeah,
By,
yeah.
by the time that fourth one came, everybody was all revved up for that fourth one. So
Yeah. I remember when the fourth one came out, and I remember seeing the commercials for it on trailers for it on TV, and it was just like I think that was probably where I was first became more aware of the franchise. I remember on Halloween though, it used to come on like every Halloween it would come on, and I remember seeing the opening when I was a pretty young kid, but my parents wouldn't let me watch it. But I remember it coming on. It's about the time I had to go to bed after trick or treating, and it would come on, and you hear the music, and you see the pumpkins. And it's cool the way the third one comes on like that, but with a computer pumpkin instead of
yeah,
like the real pumpkin.
yeah, I had a warped childhood. Everyone, my parents let me watch whatever I wanted to when I was young, and so I was warped really early. Uh,
Yeah. Well, it was on. I mean, my parents let me watch some of it. They were, but it was on, and they're like, "All right, go to bed."
yeah, I think I saw the Halloween movies a lot when I was a kid. More so than any other franchise growing up. More I never took to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies until I was much older. Nightmare on Elm Street came a little bit after that, and of course, Friday the 13th. I always thought were dumb until
Oh,
after he got the hockey mask. So,
yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that knowing about Friday the 13th, it was pretty far into it by the time I really started watching it. He had to have the hockey mask on, and really, but the one that they get that right the first time is the fourth one. Because to me, it's like the fourth one's the one that really it was almost like a remake of the first one, except for Jason's in it the whole time with the hockey mask. You don't have to get it. He starts with it.
yeah, yeah. And I agree with you. And with the Halloween franchise, he always had Michael Myers was always the boogeyman who had the mask on the very beginning of pretty much beginning of the movie. And so that image was always more iconic for me growing up. And my parents, like I said, we'd rent these movies, record them, and I'd readily have them available to watch and rewatch all the time. It wouldn't even shock me if I still had the VHS that my mother recorded with Halloween 1, 2, and 3 on it. Back there somewhere, because I still have a lot of those videos somewhere.
Actually broke out a VHS player earlier today. I got that Late Night with the Devil from Umbrella, and it came with a VHS tape of it. And so I'm like, I
Oh,
gotta check
nice.
this out. Yeah, broke out the VHS player. I put on House. I had the VHS tape of that. I put that on for a minute, but then I checked out the Late Night with the Devil, and it's actually in black and white on the VHS tape, and it's a little different than the movie, the regular movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. It doesn't have anything new in it, but it's edited in a different way. It doesn't during the commercial breaks. It doesn't show like the behind the scenes stuff. It goes to like commercial,
Oh, so they did it as though it was like actual
Yeah,
the TV
yeah,
show.
yeah. It's
So
like a lost footage tape. It does have the ending, which shouldn't really be in there,
yeah,
but it does have that in there. It's weird that they would like cut out some stuff like the open explanation, like the documentary part, cut that out, but then they left the ending in there,
yeah.
which is weird that they would make that decision. They should have just ended it like when when her face lights up and everything goes to shit, It's like,
That's interesting. I might have to look that up. I wonder who did that version of the VHS.
well, it's Umbrella. I heard there's another one somewhere else. I've seen people post it. I'm not sure who else makes it, but Umbrella is like that Australian
Yeah.
production company. Yeah.
I believe the company that does the VHS version of the movie is the
Yeah.
same I bought my VHS. Let me go look for it real quick. Because that's a good delving off of.
Yeah, it's funny though. Yeah, I put on the VHS tape and it looked really bad as far as the quality of it. But after watching it a few minutes, I'm like, I could watch this. It's like the quality it's interesting just the SD quality. Like you see less on the screen, but it's just very interesting the way like so many things are obscured that you may not necessarily want to see.
Okay, so brokehorrorfan.com, I think is who does it. And they do VHS copies of
Yeah.
these movies.
What is that? Is that Vamp or something?
This is VHS
Oh,
94,
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
and this is VHS 99.
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
And they did all the Terrifiers this way, multiple versions. I think they also did that Late Night with the Devil, and they've done a whole bunch of them.
Right.
I bought a couple of them. I think I love the VHS movies, even the
Yeah.
bad ones. I like that. This is my favorite anthology series. I love the bad ones because there have been bad sequels. But I think Shudder has done a great job with them. But before we delve into that, I just want to thank everyone out there for listening to this podcast on Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which then delved into other horror films for the month of October. We have a lot of stuff coming up for this October. We're going to have some amazing podcast episodes just for you to enjoy the horrifying month of October. So I hope you come back and watch some of these or listen to some of these. Also, make sure you check out some of the older episodes because there's bound to be some movies back there that we talked about that you will be interested in. I also want to thank Dave Watkins for joining us for conversations and conversations in horror, blah 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 blah. And the thing is, we always delve deeper into other things as we're talking, which is some of the great highlights that you all get to listen to, such as us talking about
Wait,
watching.
should we rate the movie though, real quick?
Well, if you want to rate the movie, we can. Sometimes Thomas loves to rate the movies, but I don't really rate the movies with anyone else.
I think it's a good thing to rate the movies. I started more thinking about that lately. Yeah, but let's. I think to me, he does weird stuff with it. But let's just do a regular 4 out of 5 stars. I rated a 4. I rated a 4.
You rated a 4?
But just because of nostalgic reasons. Obviously,
I think I will still rate it a 4 as well. This one used to be one of my favorites out of the entire franchise because of the way it ended, and I always thought there was going to be a sequel. I had the same reaction to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch as I did with The Evil Dead 2 when I saw it as a kid.
Oh yeah.
Had that, to me, that to be continued ending, and for years I couldn't wait for a sequel to be fucking made. I was like dying for a sequel to be made, and of course we all know that there was a huge gap in between Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness.
Can you imagine a sequel to Halloween 3 though? What could you do? It's like
When
either
you're
the kids die or they don't die, you know?
when you're a kid, you don't think about that. You just know that this movie ended and you didn't have all the answers.
Because
And so
like,
you want the
yeah,
answers.
the kids don't die, and so the Irish people have a really bad year, or they die and they have a really good year, you know?
Oh my god. But the thing is, I can still watch this. I watched it last night or 2 days ago without any problems rewatching this one. There are some of the Halloween franchise movies I can't rewatch
Right,
with
yeah,
open
yeah.
mind anymore. I can't watch part 5 again, probably for at least another decade. That one but
I could watch it again. I watched it a couple of years back, but I felt after I watched it, I felt like I couldn't watch it again. But I think I could pop it in and watch it. You know?
yeah, well, what at some point I'm sure we'll delve into that one like we do most. We're gonna eventually get to all the Halloween movies. Not this year, not this month, but eventually we'll get around to all of them because this franchise, like a lot of great franchises, it's interesting to talk about people's different reactions to each of the sequels, to each of the pieces in the franchise. So we'll eventually get around to them, but this month we're hoping to get around to about 4 of them. And there are tons more that we haven't gotten to yet, but we hope to get around to it. So I hope that you all will stick with us as we continue this great month of October with more episodes of the podcast. Everyone out there, have a great day and see you or hear you soon. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.